where do you watch AEW during the week? It's on Wednesdays, is that correct?
Yeah, TNT.
TNT, okay.
Yeah. TNT Dynamite.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, they've been rearranging the schedule around basketball, or since basketball started, But yeah, nowadays there's still Monday Night Raw, which is awful. It is so bad.
You record it in videotape and like fast forward through the bad parts.
Yeah, which is vast majority
80% of it. Yeah.
And then then on Wednesdays you've got WWE, NXT, and AEW. They run at the same time. NXT usually sucks.
Yeah, that's the future wrestlers, right? Like the ones they're bringing up.
I've never heard that. I don't know. It's a bunch of people that, frankly, I think just suck at their job for the most part. Then there's Friday.
I think NXT stands for next. But I might be wrong.
Yeah, then there's SmackDown. Used to be years ago, it was on Thursday nights. Now it's on Friday nights. And that usually they, for a while there, they had a lot of good mix of some really good women wrestlers in there. That's where Charlotte Flair, Ric Flair's daughter, wrestled. Yeah. Dude, she's good, man. She walks around the ring like she owns it. She's got a really good presence, man. She is a hell of a fun to watch. But she's out right now. And then there's several other women wrestlers that used to be on there in the regular that were fun to watch that are not. But it is
so you watch all these shows?
I'll record them most of the time, and then I'll turn it on, fast forward, see if anything's there worth watching. SmackDown's the only one I usually watch a lot of content of.
Yeah.
AEW, I'll watch a lot of that just because that's what everybody talks about. It's actually just kind of fun. It's more fun to talk about it with the group than it is to actually watch it. Wrestling's just not very good right now. But this is all we have. This is basically, we're making the best out of what we have.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as it got.
Kind of all sports.
Once you got into like 2005, it's not like that bad. But it's not, WWE is not good. And I think the number one problem driving all this is they're not letting the wrestlers be their own personalities. They're telling them who to be. So that's why you don't have The Rock right now. That's why you don't have a Stone Cold Steve Austin right now, or Macho Man. You don't have any of these people that were like breakout stars because they're not
allowing them to break out.
Yeah, here's your script type stuff.
Yeah, right. It's just like, well, it's not bad.
I mean, comics?
Well, comics and episode 141 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast.
There's some optimistic foreshadowing there.
Look, I have hope in my heart, Matt. I have hope in my heart.
We haven't recorded it yet, and you're already saying it's not bad. So.
Look, I believe in you guys, and I know you're going to make it.
That's big mistake. Way too much faith, dude.
So, well, hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is, despite what these knuckleheads are saying, it's going to be a really fun show. It's going to be great. It's always great when we get to sit down and talk to each other. It makes the Sundays that we record this on a hell of a lot better than, they could be if we weren't doing this. We hope you have all had fantastic weeks. We hope you've read some great comics. We hope you have stayed healthy and stayed generally positive. It's kind of hard to do right now with the state of the world because shit kind of sucks sometimes. But hopefully listening to this will bring some levity, lighten your mood a little bit. I know it does, at least on my end, it does for me. If you, during the week, you need like a midweek mood booster, you should totally head over to our Facebook page. We have a Facebook group. It's always cool. Everybody there is posting cool things. We've got a great little group of people from all over really the country that have, they talk, they share things. It's a good environment. It's a positive environment. Unlike some of the other places you can go on the internet, which is just really kind of shitty. People talking about what they don't like instead of talking about what they do like. You don't need that. And you won't find that at the Southern Fried Geekery podcast group. You can also check out Instagram, and you can check us out on Twitter. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And if you have some poignant Mark Twain shit that you just really need to write down and send to us, shoot that to us in an email. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com.
That's like a line from one of, I think it was Devil's Rejects. He tells the guy, says, the next words out of your mouth better be some real fucking genius Mark Twain shit because they're going on your tombstone.
Oh no, that's 100% where I got that from. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a Was it? No, it was Devil's Rejects. Yeah, it wasn't House.
I think it was Devil's Rejects. Yeah.
Yeah. Is anybody got any Mark Twain shit they want to say? So
I have no Mark
line.
Twain shit I want to say. Yeah.
But how you guys doing this week, man?
It seems to be getting a little bit better as we move into September.
It seems to be a little bit better.
Yeah, well, things are looking up. I got a good work call on Wednesday, and things are feeling a little bit better. So,
when you start from the bottom, like 2020 has, there's only one way to go. How about you, man?
I do not challenge fate like that, Caleb.
That's a valid point, and I should probably shut the fuck up.
Yeah, do not challenge fate, because you may think it's as bad as it can get, but 2020, if nothing, has proved that it can always get worse.
Yep, correct.
Well,
so quit challenging fate, brother.
Put hope in your heart. What about you, Matt? How's your week going, brother?
It was good. I felt like comparatively speaking, I feel like I practically traversed the globe. I went all the way to the very southwestern corner of the state, to all the way up to the very northwestern corner of the state over the course of my week.
Damn.
Just traveling those
busy
roads,
week, dude.
man. Yeah, just traveling those roads, just experiencing all kinds of new types of humidity in different locations.
Arkansas will do that. So my grandpa used to say, if you don't like the weather in Arkansas, hang out for a little bit. It'll change every 15 minutes, and it'll treat you so many ways you're bound to like one of them. So
yeah.
One of those isms.
Denver's the same, but yeah, Arkansas is notoriously bad for it.
Those kind of road trips, they suck for work, but I still have this dream that the three of us are going to like take a weekend sometime and like do a road trip where we stop by like little mom and pop shops and flea markets and stuff like that, and just like go hunting for treasure.
I mean, if we ever like started making money from this podcast, we could do like a cruise around the country.
It'd be awesome.
Talking about us going antiquing?
Pretty much, yeah.
RVing to different comic shops, that sort of thing.
It's like Antique Roadshow for geeks. It's really
Geek
what I want.
Roadshow.
It's what I want in my heart. Well, in your travels and in your awesome weeks, did you guys read anything cool? This is the opportunity to inject a short stack. That way I don't get yelled at this week.
There again's another optimistic forecast for you.
How about you, Matt? You read anything?
I mean, I read quite a few books over the past day and a half, because I picked my books up late this week because I said I was out of town. Some standouts for me, this from Ablaze Comics, the Sumerian run that they're doing, which is their Conan the Barbarian, but they're calling the Sumerian to get around the Marvel and Disney power. This issue felt very much more like what we were promised to me personally. This whole, statement that the Blaze had made is this is going to be Conan uncensored and yada, and all that. Well, I didn't really feel like that they had delivered upon that in the first two series. Series not being bad, it just felt like, well, this just feels like a Marvel. I mean, it's, like a Marvel Conan story or a Dynamite Conan story I've read before. This one felt a lot different. Mm-hmm. This one felt like, okay, here we're getting an adaptation where they're not pulling any punches and they're not trying to turn Conan the Barbarian into the character they want him to be. They're writing him as Howard wrote him.
Right.
So I really liked this one, and I'm really anxious to see where this story goes. I'm not familiar with this story. I've read, most of these old Conan stories as Howard wrote them. This one I do not recall reading. So the other two I was familiar with. I knew where they were going. This one I don't. So I'm anticipating this one for that no reason other than that alone.
Nice.
So that was a standout for me. What was that, Craig?
I said that's nice.
Yeah. And I have a couple of others. I mean, the Brian Azzarello, Eduardo Riso Moonshine series is continuing. I thought that one ended a few issues ago, frankly. But we're at issue 20 now, and there's no sign that it's wrapping up anytime soon. That one's still delivering.
I have to find trades of that. I read the first volume, the first story arc, I guess. And then for some reason, it had such a long pause that I got removed from it on my pull list. And then it had been out a few issues by the time I realized it had started coming back out. So, but I really enjoyed the first arc.
Yeah, it gets pretty, once you get into the second arc, it gets, frankly, for me, it gets really convoluted. And there's so many characters with similar names, and frankly, there's characters with the same names. They'll call one, Fat Tony and one regular Tony, and then you're like, who the what? So but it's kind of gotten past that now, and it's a much more linear, easier to follow story. That I found my interest has kind of gone back up. It's almost dropped it, frankly, because it felt like way over convoluted for a while there, just for me. And then probably the other, among everything else that I read, as far as things standing out, the Red Sonja number 19 took a very interesting turn. Just when you thought the story was winding down, a couple of very dramatic things happened in number 19. So how she will respond to these dramatic events, I'm interested to see.
Caleb?
Women with swords.
Women with swords.
So I have to women with distributing swords and pawns. Different reference, but still funny nonetheless. So I gotta just piggyback off Matt, because this story in the Sumerian, like, he was preaching and he said everything that needed to be said, and it was great. I actually was taken by the art in this book, which, like Matt has said, the story wasn't in these past couple ones, like Red Nails, that we came out. The stories were not as quote unquote uncensored as we thought they were going to be, but I actually enjoy the art in these books a lot, because they're usually people I've never seen. Most of the time they're European artists or Asian artists on them, and they do a different style. So just stylistically, I think they're really cool. But no, that was completely rad. I have not finished it yet, but I actually started this morning a book that Craig spoke about a few episodes ago on the podcast, The Happiness Will Follow by Mike Hawthorne. I'm not done with it yet, but I'm about midway through it, and it's just, it's so good.
It's rad, ain't it?
It is very cool. It's kind of like, it's like watching an episode of Shameless, except without the sheer, like the fact that this is real life for somebody. Yeah. There is a little comedic aspect to it. There's a little heartbreaking aspect to it. You just want to reach out and help these people, and you can't. But unlike Shameless, this is not written in a lab. This is somebody's real life. You just want the people in the books to be better because you think that they can be better. And you said all of this, like I'm preaching to the choir on this one. But no, it was great. And then last but not least, and it's not something that I'm going to dig into just because I don't know if somebody's going to talk about it on the show or not. And I may talk about it down the road if not, but a book came out this week that was, it was not what I expected it to be. And I don't know that I really had any expectations of it. But I think it was better than what I was anticipating. And that was Inkblot number 1. And it's written by comics royalty, basically. Emma Kubert, who is the granddaughter of the great Kubert, is the one who I think wrote this. And then she was helped out artistically by a guy named Rusty Glad. Long story short, a librarian / sorceress opens up a portal to the 9 realms, and also creates a magic cat while it's happening. So just it was pretty awesome. It says it's rated teen, but it actually felt like it could have been an all ages book. Like it had a very ElfQuest vibe to it in a way. So I'm not sure why it's rated teen, other than just like a cover your ass kind of thing. But if you haven't read it yet, I'm curious to know if you guys felt the same way. Like, I thought it could have very easily been an all ages book. Like, it feels like it's got that kind of younger YA aesthetic that's really cool.
Yeah, I read it as well. I think anybody could read that book. It's just maybe the high fantasy would be the only reason why it would be a teen
right
book.
Like I think this is a series that once it's collected, I'm gonna pass on to the nieces. I think they'll be okay with it.
Yeah, I would say teenagers, young, preteens probably would be fine.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good book. Yeah, I did not realize that the ink blot was going to be a cat, so that was interesting. So
it's a cool concept.
Yeah.
What about you, brother?
I got, three that you've heard me talk about before. Ascender. I really enjoyed this issue of Ascender.
Yeah.
We get some resolution and to see where the story is going to go from here, I think. So it was pretty great. And that's Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. Batman number 98. I enjoyed this issue. I don't know about you guys, but kind of Batman wrapping up his dealings with the passing of Alfred and moving back into actually going to take on the Joker is where this kind of headed. So, and I've enjoyed Harley Quinn in this, even though she gets overused quite a bit. I've enjoyed what Tinian's been doing with her character. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's where I'm at with that book. And then Chew number 2, John Layman and Dan Boltwood. I'm still really enjoying this. I mean, it's only 2 issues in, but it's kind of interesting to have a prequel to the book that I love so much. So, recommend all 3 of those.
Just realized I don't think I got Batman in my books this week.
Uh-oh. Well, I only minorly spoiled it for you.
Oh, no. So. Ain't no worries. Ain't no worries. So, it's weird because normally I would see that and I would realize it, but I didn't this week. I'm going to have to have a conversation.
Well, it seems to be coming out every week, and I don't know if that's because of Batman or if it's because that Detective Comics are on alternate weeks, but it seems like I've got a Bat book every week.
I think so. Either that or I think they're rushing stuff to make up for the gap because of COVID.
Very possible. I know there were a couple of weeks that Batman was... Do what?
Are we going to try to guess what DC Comics is doing right now? I don't think that's why. I don't think that's wise.
Not at all.
I do know there was a couple of weeks where we got Batman, the actual title, back to back. So it just feels like it's coming out a lot right now.
I think the fine folks at DC Comics are doing enough guessing for all of us. So
yeah, let's put some video game execs in charge of our comic books. That'll work really well. Yeah,
I don't know that it won't. We'll see.
I don't know that it won't either.
Yeah. Like I said, I put on a post, and we're gonna, I guess, divert just a second. But I put on a post on our Facebook group talking about this, and what I said in the post is I don't see the connection that they think is there between the video game community and potential comic readers. But that's also why they're not paying me, and I hope to be proven wrong, like I always do.
Every comic is going to come with loot crates now. For an extra $1, you can get the the first couple of pages of the next book or something.
Unlockable, downloadable content.
Yes, that is coming in DC Comics soon.
Well,
you want to know the backstory to this character? Yeah, give us a couple of bucks and you can go read it online.
Letting EA Sports run your comics. So, well, all right. Well, y'all speaking of comics, are y'all ready to actually dig into one?
Yeah.
Talk about some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So for those of you who might be new to the show, every week we gather together to speak about Mailage. We get together and we talk about a comic that we all read. We call it the Roundtable. It's just a really fun way to all like bounce ideas back and forth off each other. Sometimes we're synced up. We're simpatico. We're locked in. Sometimes we're all of complete and different total disagreement, and that's fun too. But it's really a good way. Usually I'm wrong. And when that happens, it's really a fun way to just discuss a comic, and that's why we love this. So if you are a person like this is what you come for. This is the good stuff. If you're a regular listener, then you already know what this is, and I'm just preaching to the choir. But if you're a regular listener, you also know that if you check the time notes or the notes to the episode, it's got little time markers on it, and that's where we start talking about the comics. And that is a spoiler warning. And that's so if in case you haven't read this book yet and it's on your pull list, maybe your local comic shop missed their they didn't get the new books in. Maybe you order from a online service that shoots you books once or twice a month, and this just hadn't rolled into your stack yet, and that's fine. You don't have to listen to it. Don't spoil yourself, because we are going to be spoiling things. But just hold off for a little bit. But this week, we decided, the powers that be, the up top management, really, aka Craig, said, "Hey, we only find them when their dead is coming out, and we should totally read this because it's Al Ewing, it's Simone DeMeo, it getting a little bit of artistic help on there on the color wise from Mariasara Miotti, and it's we love Al Ewing, we love what he's been doing at Marvel. It's been, especially Immortal Hulk, it's been great. So we should check this out." And we said, "Yes, Craig, that is the correct answer. That is what we shall do," and we did. And I personally really think this is a cool setup. I think it's going to be a fun ride. What do you guys think?
I enjoyed the shit out of this book.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Yeah, 100%. So, all right. So this book, digging into it a little bit, the main character of this story is a guy named Captain Jorge Malik, I think I'm assuming is how you spell it. It's like George's, but he is the captain.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Jorge's. He is the captain of a ship, and of a spaceship. I should say most of this story is kind of a sci-fi space action drama, and his ship is called the Vihan 2. And he's got some long connection to this name, this ship, because 44 years prior, he was raised on another ship called the Vihan 1. And on this ship, it was actually kind of a legacy ship. His mother was raised on that ship, and his grandfather was the captain of that ship. And one day it was going to pass down to him. And it's like I said, there's a lineage there to this ship. But something happens. We don't know what in those 44 years, but we know that Jorge is now the captain of the Vihan 2. We don't know what happened to the Vihan 1. And what the Vihan 2 is what they call an autopsy ship. Well, that sounds strange, right? Like, what is an autopsy ship? Like, what in space needs autopsying? Well, in this world, in this universe, something has happened. We don't know the impetus of this. What we do know is that it happened at the best possible time it could, because things were drying up. Things for the people who make their living, kind of like coal farmers in America, right? Or coal miners in America. Their mines were shutting down. They were running out of resources. People were going broke. People were starving. But all of a sudden, gods, capital G gods, big old bodies, started showing up. And they when they popped in, they were no longer among the living. These were dead gods that just kind of manifested in the far reaches of space. And who can say why? They don't know. But you never forget the first time you see one of these gods. They're just ginormous, and they're gorgeous, and they're beautiful, and they're celestial. But they're also dead. Well, the good people of the space decided that, look, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. These are resources. They're being delivered to us. We can use these. And so, 50% scavenger, 50% pirate, 100% entrepreneurial spirit, they start farming these dead god bodies. They'll roll up in their ships, and they'll claim a sector, kind of like Oklahoma. So the Sooners, how they would roll out and they would claim a sector of land. That's essentially what these, again, I don't really know what you'd call them. These miners, these farmers would do. And they take parts, they take stuff from these gods, jelly from the eyes, meat from the cheeks, who knows what else. And they use them to create things. They use them to thrive. And that's what Captain Jorge is in the business of doing with the Vihan 2. And he's got a 4-person crew himself. He's got Ella Hewer, who is the coroner. There is Alice Worth. She's the quartermaster. And you've got Jason Hewer, who is the engineer. And, like you might imagine, these are freelancers, right? Like, these folks are out for themselves. They're trying to make money off this. They split the stuff 4 ways, assumedly. But there are rules governing this. Some are legitimate rules, some are law, and some are unspoken rules. So when the story kicks off, a god body has blinked into existence. And like I said, this thing is meant to be massive, and all of these ships, they are basically racing to get to the good parts. The problem is, capitalism is very much still alive and well in this universe. and the corporates, the corporate entities, the people with the money and the clout, they are doing a real good job of squashing the ability of these smaller units, of the smaller ships, the smaller crews, to really get the parts that have the most value, that have the most worth, that they can get the most dollar for. To the point that even if the smaller ships get there first, the corporate ships roll in and they just scare them off. And if they don't, they'll get the cops to back them, the space cops, to back them up. And the space cops are also there to make sure that people stay within regulations, that ships who claim a sector don't try to take any of the metals that are supposed to go back to the government. Some of these high-tech things that could be sold on the black market, they make sure the scavengers only take what they're supposed to take. Sometimes with force. It's very much a heavy-handed operation. And one of these officers, these space cops, is a person named Paula Richter, and she's got some history with Malik, with the entire crew, with basically everybody. She rules with an iron fist. She's not writing warning tickets. If you steal something, if you mess up, you're going to jail. She's writing you citations. She's giving you your last strike. And we see a little bit of this in the book. Somebody actually tries it, and she steps in. She swoops in and just takes them out. She's merciless. She's ruthless. Well, Malik and his crew, they have a little conversation about going and taking some of the eye jelly, but they just, you got to choose your battles, right? They decide that they're not down for a skirmish. They're not down for a fight. They just want to get their bounty and get out of there. So they opt for the cheek section. They're going to take the left side of the face, and they're going to get some cheek meat and a little bit of the lip, and they're going to be able to get the hell out of Dodge. And they do that. They follow the rules. They mind their business. They're very mechanical and methodical about what they do and say, because as Jorge Malik likes to remind them, even the ship has ears. You can't say the wrong thing. You gotta anything you might have to say about committing, maybe taking a little bit off the top, maybe taking something that's not yours, you got to squash that. You can't say it out loud. So they do. They roll over the cheek section, and Ella, she uses what she has at her disposal, and a giant, assumedly a laser scalpel, juts out of the bottom of the ship, and they go just like a little jigsaw. They go carving up and taking the meat. Jason, who is the engineer, like I said, he runs these drones that essentially, as they detach parts of the meat in space, these drones take them and they put them in canisters, and they roll out. And keep the stuff fresh and safe. And it's really a well-developed operation. These folks know what they're doing. They're fast and they're efficient. So efficient, in fact, that they catch the eye of our old buddy Paula Richter, space cop, who again has some history with Jorge's. And they don't like each other, but Jorge's is not in the position to push back. Jorge's is not, and she's just kind of an asshole about the entire situation. She rolls in when they're getting ready to roll out. She's like, "Hey, did you only take what you're supposed to?" And he's like, "Yes, we only took what we're supposed to." She's like, "Okay, I think you're lying. So when you get back to the place where you're going to unload all this stuff, I'm marking you down for secondary and tertiary searches. Like, they're just going to go through your ship with a fine-tooth comb, because I think you stole something, and we're going to find it." And they didn't, like full stop. They did not take anything they weren't supposed to. This is merely harassment, because Paula knows where Jorge came from. She knows his mother. There's some baggage there. She knows his grandfather, and she essentially thinks he's just gutter trash. Right? Like, and you don't know why, although they give you some insight to why Jorge has reason to really loathe the fact that she exists, and to be it gives you respect for who he is, because he really does bite his tongue because of this history. And you can go read that first issue to find out. But as they're going back to the dock, as they're unloading, they go into warp, and they've got exactly 2 minutes and 40 something seconds to where, as like I said, Jorge Malik likes to say, the ship doesn't have ears. They can talk about what they want to talk about. And this crew is planning some sort of heist. Like I said at the beginning of talking about this book, the only time you see the gods, as denoted by the title, you only find them when they're dead. And Jorge remembers seeing this first dead god, his first god, at a very young age. But he lets the crew know, as long as they're down with it and they're with him and they all agree to the plan, in 3 days' time, they're going to see a live one. And we don't know how, we don't know where, we don't know what's going on, we don't know what the plan is, but we know that they are planning on doing something that the powers that be will probably not like. All of this is gorgeously depicted by Simone de Mayo. He has a very animated, a new age animation style. I'm fairly certain that he does the majority of his color work and stuff digitally. His colors are vibrant. Things just kind of flow into the other. I don't know a name that I could really latch onto this to give the readers, to give you folks at home listening to this a better idea of what his style is. But as I was reading this, I was remembering animated films. Did you ever, either of you ever watch the film Atlantis? I want to say it was a Disney movie, might not have been, but it was.
I haven't.
I haven't seen it. No.
There's a lot of that style here. Atlantis had some really cool imagery. Maybe not the best story, but as far as the way it looked, it was great. And I think you're seeing a lot of that animation influence brought out here. It also reminded me of an anthology series on Netflix that involved robots, and I forget off the top of my head what it was called. I think we talked about this on the show way back, but there was this little show on Netflix that it was all sci-fi stuff. It was all animated. Some of it was very simplistic. Some of it was just extreme anime influence, but it reminded me of some of the stuff we saw in that little anthology series. And I think he's got a background with that. So I thought it looked amazing. I loved the format of the book. I loved the way that it was graphically designed. You get this kind of old school text that it's reminiscent of what you might think of, like literally in a period piece that's talking about life at sea. Like the text, it was the year 2023. The ship was the Vihan, an autopsy ship with a crew of 4. It uses that language from, and if you're reading Stephanie Phillips' A Man Among Ye, like it uses some of that same language that you would see in that. That it's supposed to be reminiscent of old exploration, old explorers, old seafaring stuff. The way it talks is a ship's log. And I just think it's really great. I think Al Ewing is really driving home that he is not to be bracketed. He is not to be shoehorned or typecast in the types of stories that he can tell. He is capable of weaving through genres like a scalpel, like the Vihan. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, very well put. It was a joy to read, a joy to look at. I'm super excited about this book and where it's going to go. The fact that this character has a bead on an actual live god, because the assumption that you kind of get is that they only appear when they die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I'm looking forward to the second issue. This was maybe my favorite book that I read this week.
I can't argue with that. Won't even try.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt? You got any things to throw in there?
No, I mean, I really dug it. Really interested to see where it's going. Obviously, I'm really curious. It was pitched as an epic. So, what kind of twists and turns are we going to get out of this story, and how long is the story going to go on? These are all things I'm really curious to know. Overall, I'm just really anxious to see how Al Ewing writes his own property versus one of the big two properties.
Yeah, I mean, so far he seems to be nailing it pretty well. I mean, it's hard to tell with one issue, but I was not disappointed.
Yeah, it was great. Character design was very good. It was a good setup. It was a good setup issue.
I don't know that that I've read anything that Al Ewing has done that hasn't been that has been a creator-owned property. And I didn't think about that till Matt said it. Can you think of anything?
I can't personally.
No, I can't.
It's going to be real, which this story has some classic tropes to it, so I don't have any fear of what he's going to do. I automatically, when I see something like this, and I just think of my own experience with narratives like this, I'm already looking for who's the sellout. I'm already looking for who's going to betray them. And I think this book sets it up to where, and it could be nobody, of course, but when I see the characters who are Ella and Jason, they both have the last name, and it doesn't explain anything. You don't know if they're married. You don't know if they're brother and sister. So I'm automatically like, there's some tension built in with that I think it's neat that he let that lie. It's neat that he didn't try to go too far into the first issue.
Yeah, I mean, not everything has to be spelled out in the first issue, for sure. And to leave some mystery for the second and third and fourth issues is great. Because sometimes I think they try to cram everything in, all the backstory into the first issue, and then it feels like a first issue. Mm-hmm. Where this just kind of throws you into what's going on in this world, and you just kind of have to pick it up as you're going. Not that it's a hard pickup, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what's happening. But
no, for sure, there's a lot of action in this book, but it's paced so well that it kind of the book actually kind of feels quiet. Like it's giving you all the information, but it's pacing it out just enough to where it's not overwhelming, and it doesn't feel like the book is screaming at you. And I think that's a hard thing to do, and I think that's a testament to Al Ewing's craft in the story.
Well, I think when you do a space epic, you kind of have to give it room, just from the environment it's in, and I think he's done that. They kind of show up at the Skod, and they start doing their mining, and then there's little skirmishes taking place all over the body. And they're like, okay, let's just do our thing and get out of here. They don't delve too deep into it, but it lets you know that there's this bickering going on everywhere.
I'm interested to find out. Be interesting to find out why they're called gods, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Why? That's, of course, in them searching out one that's still alive. I mean, that sets up a really good scenario to explain that. But why exactly are these beings called gods is what I'm looking forward to learning.
Yeah, because
one thing I loved about the colors of this too was that the gods were the god that we see is so vibrant and colorful in space. That was pretty impressive too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's causing them to die? Because the appearance of this god was a healthy female.
Yeah,
it wasn't like she was old and busted, as they say. Yeah. And
it didn't look like there were any war wounds either.
Yeah, no traumas. Yeah, so what it reminds me of is in the ocean, how for years and years we only ever knew the giant squid existed when the dead ones were found.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I couldn't help but think of that when I was reading this book.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very similar, right? You only know about them when they wash up on shore.
Yeah.
With the gods, you only know about them when they die.
Yeah. You only find them when they die. So
yeah.
So that brings up an interesting point. And as I was reading this, it was one of the few small nitpicks that I had about not anything about the look to it, but I think as I was watching this, there's supposed to be all of these ships that are carving up the gods, that are, you're seeing these small skirmishes and they're mining these things. And when the Vihan 2 swoops in, it takes a very visual, noticeable chunk out of her face. But that's really the only, other than a few small missing bits, like in the very last page, that's the only degradation to that body that you see. I would have liked to have seen more of the breakdown, and like you see these time elapsed photos, and since Matt spoke about the ocean, that's what made me think of it, of what happens to whales when they sink to the bottom of the sea, how the things just break down and come out of everywhere and start breaking this fish down, or this whale down. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that, because like I said, it was strange to me that you have all of these ships supposedly taking everything out, and really the only noticeable takeaway that you see is the face. I thought that was, and there's reasons that they did that, I'm sure. I would have liked to have seen more of a breakdown. Also,
well, there could be narrative reasons.
Well, why would that add to the story though?
It would speak to the amount of people that are out there, and like I said, it's just a visual choice. But if they're big, so like I said, in one of the scenes, it's where they're carving up the cheeks. You see the eye in the background, and they'd already given this big breakdown about how the eye was the most valuable, and that's where the skirmishes were going to be, and that's where like the big problem. So they were going to avoid it, but there's nothing there. Like there's nobody there. There's not anything happening with it. It was weird to me. It was strange, noticeable, and not in a way that I think made the story any less enjoyable. It was just weird that they gave you that information about how many folks were out there scavenging this thing, and then you really didn't see it happening. I don't know that it takes anything away from the narrative. It was just noticeable on my end.
Well, it could be that it's a fresh god.
Right.
The pickings have just started. As far as a degradation, it's in the vacuum of space. There's nothing to say that it would degrade over time.
No. I don't mean decay. I mean like some of these other ships moving in just as fast as the Voorhees or the Vihon is, and taking pieces away. Like I said, it doesn't take anything from the story. I just thought it would have been an interesting aspect. It's always that thing of what we could have had. An interesting aspect of showing just how busy this is and how hard it is to maneuver in these spaces. And again, some of that might just be my initially, as they're claiming their quote unquote spaces, it reminding me of those chuck wagon races from Oklahoma, to where people are like knocking over other people's wagons and getting each other's way. They're cutting each other off. And that may be why I went there. But again, I just thought it was just a minor issue.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even notice it until you said it. So I just assumed that they were all just showing up at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
that it was a newly found.
No, and I think that's right, because you start seeing the first claims coming through. So I mean, they're all rushing to get there fast, but because everybody's in a rush, that's where I was saying, like, there's there's people popping in, stepping over each other. There's little skirmishes happening, and I think it was probably done just because they wanted your attention more towards the interiority of the story, to what's happening with the captain, to the background and stuff. And maybe that would have detracted from some of it. And maybe that would have made the story too loud. And with loud being in air quotes, like I said, because the book really does feel methodical, very paced, very controlled. And I think maybe having all that activity in the background or the foreground would have taken away from that. So that might've been why they did that. It was interesting to me, because you see all of these ships rolling in, but you don't see them getting in each other's way, causing the skirmishes that are happening all around them.
I mean, I can see that. But it certainly didn't detract from me at all.
Nah. That scalpel rolling through her lip is nasty.
And it maybe is showing you how efficient his crew is at their job. They were in and out of there so quickly.
Yeah, that's true. They got there and got the hell out. So.
Yeah.
What do you think god meat tastes like?
Pork. I don't know.
Matt, you got any guesses on what god meat tastes like?
Oh, that's easy. It tastes like bacon.
Ooh. So pork. Yeah. No, you're right. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I wonder if you
there
can
you have it.
I wonder if you can eat a god rare. Order up a god steak like a little blue plate.
Yes, that is where our shows went to today.
And these are questions that must be asked.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out.
Well, what'd you read this week, Craig?
Well, I read a few books, but I'm actually going to talk about an older book.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a book that came out, 10 or 11 years ago now, and that is Locke and Key, Welcome to Lovecraft #1 by IDW, written by Joe Hill, drawn by Gabriel Rodriguez, colored by Jay Photos, and lettered by Robbie Robbins. So this is the opening story for the Locke kids who witnessed their father being murdered by two of his students. They're forced to move back to their ancestral estate home of Key House with their mother. The estate is in Lovecraft, Massachusetts. That's a hard word for me to say for some reason. Massachusetts, which is a long way from and much different than their previous lives in San Francisco. The house is huge and old, and as most houses of this size, and really any house that actually has a name, it comes with as many mysteries as it does rooms. And the two older siblings, Tyler and Kinsey, they begin to settle into their new lives. The youngest sibling, Bode, begins finding hidden keys throughout the house. The first one he finds opens a door in that very same room that opens to the outside of the house. And as he steps through the door, his body falls back to the ground while his spirit continues on through the door. Looking back, he sees his body laying on the floor. And of course, this freaks him out. And as he runs back through the door, his spirit re-enters his body and he wakes up. Was it a dream? Was it real? What the actual hell is going on in Lovecraft, Massachusetts? Yeah, this story is one of my favorite. I'm going to call it a horror story, but it's more really kind of a thriller type story, in my opinion. And it's written marvelously by Joe Hill, the entire story, and drawn just absolutely beautifully by Gabriel Rodriguez. This overall, the kids go through, they start finding different keys that open up different things in the house. Each one is mysterious as the next. I know there is one season of this on Netflix. I haven't heard about season 2 when it may or may not being released. If you enjoyed the Netflix series, and even if you didn't, this is a series that everybody should read if you're into thriller type stories.
So I got to ask, what's better, the book or the television show?
Oh, the book, in my opinion, is by far better.
It's always better.
Yeah. So this is called Lovecraft, Massachusetts.
No, it's Locke and Key, Welcome to Lovecraft. But yes, it takes place in Lovecraft, Massachusetts.
That's not an actual town, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's made up for the story.
It's a fictional town. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's actually a Lovecraft, Massachusetts.
I didn't think that there was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, obviously a tie into H.P. Lovecraft, and the story has kind of a Lovecraftian feel to it.
Does it have a true Lovecraftian feel to it, or does it feel like a ripoff of like he's leaning on the name?
I mean, to me, it does. But I guess that would be kind of subjective. But to me, it really does. It, lots of mysterious stuff going on, lots of, just the whole environment that there's these keys in this house that lead to different things. I mean, there's a head key that you can plug into your head, opens up the top of your head. You can take things out that you don't want, for instance, memories or fears. You can put things in. Let's say you wanted to read every comic ever. If you had them, you could just drop them into your head and you would have the knowledge of all of those books.
Well, and I was going to say,
ahead.
I haven't read this. I did watch the series, which I think the series, it was fun. I don't have anything bad to say about it. It was for a younger audience than what I was necessarily expecting, but at least in the show,
the book.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say the books do not have that feel. They're very much more for everyone. I would say more for adults.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you on the series.
What I was going to say is in the show, they don't necessarily like there's small Easter eggs of Lovecraftian things, right? Like there's these little hints of it. And I think where the Lovecraft comes in, at least from the show, and this may be played up or played differently in the actual comic, was that you're being allowed, like you're realizing that there are things behind the veil, and it's Lovecraftian in that sense. Now, I don't know that they get into either in the book or in the show anyway, any of like the elder gods or anything like that. But
there's none of that, but there is, like you said, very
veil.
much a behind the veil feel. Yeah.
Right.
And it's, a little bit in the kind of the mouth of madness. You've got all this stuff going on and what you do when you're facing all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
A ghost from the past actually takes the form of a human. All kinds of little things like that are, kind of play with your sense of reality, which
Right.
I would say, kind of is the mouth of madness kind of vibe you get from the whole thing.
If you had to pick a key, which key would you pick?
Definitely the head key.
The head key? Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
being able to absorb as much content as I wanted in as little a time as possible would be, a feature I would like sometimes.
I like the idea of and I forget which key it's called, but the ghost key. But that just seems like it's setting yourself up for failure. Like somebody's going to do something that leaves you powerless.
You leave your body laying there. Well,
Yeah.
Astral projection, that's always the danger, right? Your spirit leaves, your body's laying there. Somebody can do whatever they want to your body before you return.
I'd be terrified that somebody like Matt would come along and put me in a body bag with a bunch of thumbtacks and then power bomb me over.
And body slam it around.
Right.
You'd come back and be, yeah. Or, just like your family comes and finds you and thinks you're comatose or something. And,
right. Fix you in a little bad place. It's no fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I still haven't read this yet, and it's one of those blind spots for me in comics that I need to check out.
Yeah, I really dug it. I know Jerry really dug it as well. He kind of turned me on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of my favorite series while it was out. It was one of the books I looked forward to every month.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Matt? What you been reading, brother?
Well, the book I want to bring attention to is the DC Black Label book, Hellblazer, Rise and Fall. This is the Tom Taylor, Derek Robertson, and Diego Rodriguez book. This one, so I like the character, John Constantine. He has not been used a whole hell of a lot in the past several years. He had a series here recently that I missed out on. So when I heard this was announced, I made sure and get on this one. The creative team is really what cemented my commitment to get on this book. Really wanted to see what Tom Taylor did with this character, and Derek Robertson. I'm a longtime fan of Derek Robertson. This is a story about current day Constantine, but the story itself has roots in his childhood. So we see flashbacks to Constantine's childhood and then up into current day. The story pacing, the art, everything is spot on. It's very easy to follow, very easy to read, as both these creators are known to do. There is one thing that I've got to mention in this book. Have either one of y'all read this?
I haven't yet. I didn't know it came out yet, but now I'm pissed that I don't have it.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
There's a pet peeve of mine, front and center in this book. There is a double page spread. Now, this is the Black Label format, so this is the oversized format, which lends itself to present the artwork much more of an advantageous fashion. There's a double page spread in this book that does something that I absolutely hate when they do this in comics. There is one image in the middle of this double page spread, and it's right on the spine of the book.
Oh.
So you can't even really see the fucking point of the double page spread. the what you see, what you get the real appreciation of and see in the double page spread is the background, because what's actually supposed to draw your eye and deliver the most dramatic impact is buried in the fucking divide in the spine of this book. Yeah, that shit drives me absolutely crazy. That is a monumental fail of editorial, in my opinion. Editorial should be on top of that shit. I don't know. I mean, that drives me absolutely nuts. What do you know, editorial, you got one job. That's what I want to say when I see this kind of stuff. You know, and it's a total disservice to Derek Robertson on him putting up together this double page spread to deliver this big dramatic impact. And it is absolutely freaking hamstrung by the way this was laid out. And that just drives me crazy when that happens. I don't know if y'all feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to be kind of annoying when that sort of thing happens.
It's, you know, it just has this very much right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing feel when it comes to, you know, a book being put together as, you know, when you think of that as teamwork, as creators often talk about, it's, you know, teamwork, and the editorial being a key part of that. Well, here we have editorial really dropping the ball. Of course, you know, been a big disturbance in editorial here as of late at DC Comics. So, you know, not totally surprised.
Well, yeah, I need to read that book. I've got it sitting out there and I need to read it so I can see exactly what you're talking about. But yeah.
Yep. So it's definitely worth a read, especially if you're going into this having a preference for and appreciating of the John Constantine character. You'll get even more out of this. Just the nature of the storytelling, going back to his childhood. It's got a great final page. It's got a great final page in the story. It's like, oh boy, where is this going? That I'm not going to spoil. I got the variant cover for this. I'm not a variant cover guy. I just, Kapow Comics, our LCS, just singled out a variant cover. It's a Lee Berhimo variant cover, which is nice. Amazing. It's amazing to look at. It's a great freaking cover.
Oh yeah, his work is gorgeous.
I think on those black label ones, it's just like 50-50 or something like that. They're, I don't know that it's variant as much as just like an A and B cover.
Well, it's labeled as a variant cover.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. And I think, are you talking about a variant versus incentive variant? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That I couldn't speak to.
Yeah.
The business end. But, one thing I will say, and this is an editorial complaint. I'm just going to pile on editorial, as you can tell, from DC. I just put fuel on that fire that's already been existing. This book does not benefit from this black label format. This oversized format.
Yeah.
It would have been, especially that damn double page spread that they totally screwed up. If this was a regular formatted sized comic book and that double page spread had been one page, it would have delivered much better. Much better. This is a book that, in my opinion, I cannot find any justifiable reason for the oversized format.
That's a thing.
$7.99 versus $4.99.
Yeah.
Well, the book we talked about last week was a regular size. It wasn't oversized, or was it? I don't think it was. I think it was just regular size.
It had more pages, but yeah, it was regular size.
Also that same. So that's what I was thinking, getting back to you're talking about the gutter loss. Derek Robinson is, number one, he's a hell of an artist, but he's also not new to this game. So like what you said is it would have served better as a single page. That's got to make me think that it like in his mind, he had to have thought it was going to be on a single page, because if you're an artist, unless you're just brand new to the thing, you don't put the content of your double page spread in the center of the page, because even in a standard floppy, unless it's just going to be like the centerfold, you're going to get gutter loss.
Yeah.
And so Derek Robinson knows not to do that. So yeah, they had to have flipped a script that couldn't have. I'd be very surprised.
Let's say that I mean, and obviously you can only assume Derek Robertson knows that, yes. But let's just, I mean, people make mistakes. And, you know, if they had given him this double page spread and he created this image and sent it in, just not even thinking about it, people make mistakes. It's editorial's job to say, hey, bro, let me fix this for you so your art is served better.
Right.
You know, it's
right.
You know, it's editorial's failure, no matter which way you look at it, as far as I can tell.
I'm offended. I haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah, son of a bitch, man.
Yeah, it's always annoying when that happens to you. It's like, you know what, you just killed you pulled me out of the book.
Yeah,
over something that could have easily been fixed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now that we live in the day and age of like of trade paperbacks and omnibuses, it becomes even harder. So they were like back in the day when, you know, editorial was doing a little bit of a better job in any of the publishers. You would see these double page spreads as centerfolds, and like I'm thinking of some of the double page spreads that like George Perez gave us in the Avengers, where you would get these really dynamic, everybody's rushing forward stuff, and they look great in a floppy, and you don't get that gutter loss because they did it as the centerfold, and they had formatted it that way. But when you get into the trade paperback or the omnibus version of those, you get that gutter loss all over again. So I think that goes to show like there's so much that gets. You really have to know what format that you want your story to be delivered in so you can know how it's going to look. Like that's part of that together thing. And as an editorial, you have to be able to convey that to your artists or at least catch it before it goes out.
Well, I think the real answer there is that double page spreads only work when you have no real content in the center of the page.
They really do only work in the floppy.
Like, well, they can work in a trade, but you got to have, let's say you have a battle going on and you have Superman on one side and Lex on the other. You can't have one of them in the middle of the page. You know what I mean? It's knowing how you're drawing and where it's going in the book.
Yeah, or if you have two characters, one on each page, and one's delivering a punch that lands in the gutter. I mean, that's asinine. I mean, you know, that's
so
son of a bitch.
The Sandman omnibus that I have, and I had to go pull it and flip through it real quick. They did something really cool with that, and I don't know because I mean, I've got the black leather hardbound. I think they put out 3, which also is redundant because they call it an omnibus. It's not an omnibus if there's multiple volumes. I digress. But they did something with that where they formatted it for the double page spreads in that book. They actually put a frame around the page, so there's like you have an indent around all the pages, and so it does break up the double page spread like they're not connected, but you don't lose anything in the gutter.
Yeah,
that might be the better way to do that. I don't know if it's the best way to do that. Because there were some gorgeous double page spreads in Sandman. Like there were just some work in there that just like those artists went insane on. And I think, I'd rather have it to where it's broken up by a white border to the frame of the thing that I can put together in my head than lose that in the gutter.
Yeah. I don't disagree. They got to do something better there. Whether it's the artist or editorial or a combination of both, they have to know what's going on in the way that book gets put together.
I would say that's one of the very, very, very few benefits of digital is that you don't get gutter loss. That
would be fair.
So, and maybe I hate to say it, but maybe that's what people are thinking now. And I don't know why, because they don't make the money in the digital, but.
No, that's not what they're not thinking, digital. They suck at their job. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, even if they were thinking, digital, they would suck at their job because, like I said, that's not where the money is made. But anyway, I'm sorry. That really, that actually is like, I'm offended for you.
I can't wait to read this book so I can be offended as well.
Yeah. I want everybody to be as outraged as I am. I don't like being alone on this.
So I got a question on this. So the last Tom Taylor book that we read was it was the Suicide Squad, if I'm not mistaken. Or as far as new stuff, does he have a similar tone to this, or does he go? Because when I think of Tom Taylor, he does a really good job of of injecting these really kind of comical moments into things, but also, really bringing almost a freshness to his stories. Does he do that with Hellblazer?
So there's very little comedy in this book. It's got a very dark undertone.
Mm-hmm.
But John Constantine, the character is comical.
Yeah.
There's some, there is some appropriate dry British style humor in this. And I'll just spoil one of them is he and an old friend of his go out drinking, of course, because Constantine's an alcoholic, and
on a sewer.
They go out, and it's his old friend. It's a woman. She's married. But it shows them go out drinking. And then the next panel, it shows a kid running into the bedroom of this woman, and a man laying next to her in bed saying, Mommy, there's a stinky man on our couch. Well, it's Constantine. He came home and crashed on their couch. Her husband is meeting this man for the first time. And they walk into the living room, and he's laying there hungover, and he goes, "Oh, good morning. Loud house you got here." I thought that was pretty funny.
Can you turn your kids down?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So there's just a little bit of, but it feels it would be weird to have a Constantine book without some kind of British smart ass humor, because that is what Constantine is. But for the most part, no, this is not a lighthearted, fun romp.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really smart ass British humor when he was played by Keanu Reeves.
You had to go to the dark place, Craig. You had to go to the dark place.
Oh man.
Let's see if I can't bring us back from the dark place real quick.
All
So
right.
I am kind of sitting right in the middle of you guys. Like Craig, I read something this week that's a little bit older. It's about, I'd say, close to 13 or 14 years older. But like Matt, it pulls together some great parts of the DC universe. And that is none other than Justice League of America, The Tornado's Path. This was written by Brad Meltzer. It was drawn by Ed Beans. Came out around 2006, and the collection that I have, and I got to say shout out to our friend, listener, and fellow podcaster, Hassan Thalji, who hooked me up with this hardcover. It collects JLA number 1 through 7. It was the new run that Brad Meltzer kind of took over. Have either of you were either of you reading this at the time, or have y'all read this?
I have not. No.
No, me either.
Okay, well, if you've watched any of the JLA cartoons, which I haven't, but as I understand it, this plays a little bit of a role in that. They've done some stuff with this in the animated side of DC. It's a really brilliant book, and I don't come with a lot of like Justice League baggage. I was a Marvel kid growing up. I have not gotten into I did not really start diving into DC until probably post 2012, other than some like Batman related stuff. So like, yeah, the New 52 is kind of the place that I started really like going out of my way to read non-Batman DC. And of course we all see how that turned out.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is, but I mean, I also went back and read 52, just like the actual series 52, which I think is one of the better things they've ever done. So it led me to wanting to read back into the history of the work. So this book takes place just after one of the crisis events, and it centers the character of Red Tornado. Red Tornado, as you all know, he's an android. He was invented by a guy named T.O. Morrow, along with some other androids, and he controls wind. He can make these whirlwinds. He can fly. He's kind of a badass character. He is a machine though, but he's a machine with a soul. And prior to this book, he was killed. He is deceased. No longer in the universe as we know it, and his wife is mourning him, and she's just distraught. But he's always came back. This, it's comics. This isn't the first time he's been killed before, but he's always came back. But this time he's not coming back, and his wife is, days are passing, and she's just wondering what in the world is happening. Like, is this actually it? Is he dead? Is he gone? Is John gone? And the answer is kinda. He actually, because he has a soul, his soul is hanging out. And if you're in the DC universe and you're a unbodied soul who's not ascended to wherever you're supposed to go next, and you're just kind of floating around, there is another character that you might expect to see pop up. And that character does, in fact, pop up. Brad Meltzer just throws him right on in there, and it's Dead Man. And Dead Man is hanging out with the soul of Red Tornado, discussing why he can't get back into his body or why he shouldn't. But Dead Man's got an idea. Dead Man is going to help Red Tornado fulfill a goal that he's always wanted. He's going to make him an actual human. There was a situation, as there tends to be in the DC universe, where clones were made. And these clones are soulless, and they are just kind of floating, like, sitting around not being alive, but they're viable human bodies. And Dead Man helps Red Tornado go down into one of those bodies, and he becomes human. He can feel his wife's touch for the first time, but he can still control his powers. Those powers somehow still followed him to this new body, but it becomes a problem. Like, he can't control himself. He's shaking his body over time, and the story starts to reject it. He doesn't have his gyroscopes, but he can still be a hero. But he knows what it's like to be human, and to know his wife's touch, and to actually feel his stepdaughter, his daughter, to actually know what they are. While all this is happening, some key figures that you might know from the DC universe, the big Trinity, are putting together the Justice League again. The Justice League had disbanded. They, Diana and Bruce and Clark had lost faith in one another, which is hard to imagine. This, if you've read, then you know why. But even for me sitting here now, it's still hard to imagine those figures losing faith in one another. But they had disbanded the Justice League, but they're putting it back together. And so they've met up, and they're going through a list of heroes that they think should be included in this new version of the Justice League. And you've got some names there that you just kind of expect, right? You've got Green Lantern, and they're talking about Ollie, and Black Canary's in there. And of course they're debating on among themselves who gets in and who doesn't. Does Batman, Bruce is always their curmudgeon. Maybe he doesn't want to be in. He's kind of holding that over his head to make him vote the way he wants to. But as they're putting together and they're introducing these heroes, they also talk about some new folks. Roy, who used to be the Green Arrow's sidekick, used to be known as Speedy. They bring him up, and he's almost to the point that where he's just as good as Ollie at what he does. And maybe it's time to bring him up to the big leagues. And they look at characters like Vixen, who uses a totem to kind of channel animal spirits to give herself all kinds of different powers. Black Lightning, Hawk Girl. They're going through these figures and deciding who makes the cut and who doesn't. And that really puts them in an awkward space, because they're talking about a lot of their friends, and they're talking about, making the hard choices between, well, I like this person, but I don't think this person's the right fit. This has taken their attention away from things, though, right? Like, this is a busy task. And while they're in the midst of doing this, they miss the fact that there is a figure behind the scenes who is putting a plan into action. This was written in 2006, so I feel like I can spoil it a little bit, but it's Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy is playing a puppet master. This is a smart version of Solomon Grundy. He's been alive for a while, because if you know Solomon Grundy's character, every time he dies, he comes back as being just a zombie. He's dumb, and he has to relearn everything. But this Solomon Grundy's incredibly intelligent, and he is maniacal. And so he has looped in a scheme that's going to include people like Starro. It's going to include people like Amazo, some low-level figures that you're not used to seeing. And he puts them into action, but you don't know that it's him through the majority of the story. All you know is that these kind of larger name figure, like Amazo, you talk about Amazo, that's no small dude, and Starro is no small villain. And so you see them linking up, but you're like, these people should be on the forefront. They should be themselves on their own, but you start to realize they're answering to a higher power. And what they're doing is they are going and they are collecting for Solomon Grundy these, I don't know if you can call them totems. I don't know if you can call them science experiments. In some way, they're using another villain that actually soaks in the power of whoever's around them, and he can distill them into objects, almost like Horcruxes for... someday I'll teach about Harry Potter, Matt. But they're making these because Solomon Grundy really only wants one thing. And the one thing that he wants is the exact antithesis of what Red Tornado wants. He wants to be able to die. He's tired of humanity. He's tired of feeling. He's tired of hurting. He's tired of being like brought back to life every time. He doesn't want this anymore. He doesn't want to feel the warm touch of the earth. He just wants it to be over. And he doesn't care whose lives he has to ruin and who he has to destroy to get it. And that's very, very obvious. And he sees his opening because of this power vacuum that's left while the Justice League is not in action, while they're not around. And he jumps in. Each of these stories, they do what 52 did. They do this thing that I really, really love when DC writers do this, is they don't do a quote-unquote villain or hero of the week. These are told bit by bit, and Black Lightning takes the forefront. Mr. Terrific has his own moments in every single issue. Red Tornado, Diana, you see Ollie play a big important role in this as a mentor. Green, Hal Jordan, who is kind of a staunch. He's a cop. You see him used very well in this, but they are interwoven, and each of them, there is no figure that takes precedent in any single issue. They work together, and as they should. I think that's the mark of a good Justice League story. They go on to pull in some characters from the Outsiders. They pull in some characters from the Justice Society towards the end of the story, and that leads into the second arc, which I'm not going to talk about, but which was equally as good. It's the Lightning Saga. It's solid. As I was reading the and dude, you can say zero things wrong about Ed Beans' artwork. He has, in a way, like, he draws the best kind of Batman, which in my opinion is Batman with the big ears. His design for Tornado, his facial expressions, the humanity that he brings to these panels is second to none. He draws an amazing Hal Jordan. We talk about Nightwing having the best ass in DC. I don't know. Ed Beans' Hal Jordan gives him a run for his money. Draws one of the best Hawk Girls I've ever seen. I absolutely love the way he depicts Hawk Girl on the page. It's incredible. If you haven't read this, you can get it from lots of places. Your local comic shop very likely has this sitting on the shelf. You can order it online all day, every day. One of the best scenes in the book, well drawn, well written, is I want to say towards the end of it, when the team is actually uniting against Amazo. Amazo knows each of these people, and he can mimic their powers, and he's, throughout the history, he's one of the figures that really tests the key, the Trinity, like especially Superman and Wonder Woman. And they have, the team, the Justice League, has worked together. They have trained to dismantle Amazo as quickly as possible, because the more he fights them, the better he becomes, and they have to take him off the board quickly. Seeing this team work together in a comic, and in the way this depicts it, is one of the best uses of a team playing off each other's strengths that I've seen. This book does it better than I think we've seen in film, where you actually get to see the motion, the action. I mean, you think of movies like The Avengers, where you see those big culminating events where the Avengers play off of one another, and they work together, and they use each other's strengths to their own advantages so well, and that's beautifully done. This comic on a page with sequential art does it as well, if not better, than you can do it in film. And that's one of the things that I love when comics are done right. No medium can mimic it. No medium can outshine it. And Ed Beans just goes ham, hard as a motherfucker, on this book. And it's fantastic. So at the end of it, Red Tornado has to learn some hard lessons, and he doesn't get what he wants. In a way, he gets exactly what he wants. Maybe he's getting the best that he can be, but he gets a taste of what it's like to be human for a little bit. As I was reading this part of the story, I was like, oh, okay, Tom King read this before he wrote the Vision. Like, this is where he brought some of those ideas from, and he built on them. He studied the way that Meltzer wrote the Tornado, and he used that to create a different story that was its own story, but he definitely he borrowed from some of the ideas, which and Meltzer borrowed from some of the ideas from way back in the day with Ultron and Vision, the Roy Thomas stuff. And so it's creators building on creators. So
they all borrowed from Pinocchio.
Facts.
No, I know I said originally that I hadn't read this, but as you started describing it, I have read this, and it's absolutely one of my favorite Justice League runs.
It's great, man. And like I said, I think a lot of people, as I talk about it, they'll recognize that they probably have seen it from the animated film. I'm not or the animated features that DC has. I'm not particularly sure which one did, but I know I've seen one that played with a lot of this.
One thing I loved about this run is that it wasn't centrally focused so much on the big three. No. You had all of the secondary and tertiary characters having major roles as part of the Justice League. And that's something that Brad Meltzer's done very well in the comics he's written. Has kind of delved into some of the B and C D-list characters and made them more prominent. And I kind of wish he would come back to comics and write some comics.
I do too, because this is some strong writing. Yeah. You said, he really shows in particularly in this story, he shows the Trinity in an administrative role as far as the League goes. I mean, they come in later. But so, like, one thing he did really well, there's a character that I really don't know a whole lot about, Vixen, right? Like, Vixen uses a totem, and she's able to channel the animals. But what you find out in the story, that the power is actually hers. The totem is just it's literally just a channel. It's a
focus point.
Right. And there's a scene in this story where she loses herself. Her powers are so focused, and she's channeling the animals around her so much that she actually loses touch with herself, like her persona. And so she's flying with a flock of birds, and she's so tapped into this idea of working together with a flock, and how they feed off one another, and they turn together, and they act as a social unit, that she is just kind of there. And her powers, almost in a way of their own, have to push her out of it. And it gives so much humanity to that character, and to a character that I don't know a whole lot about, but it definitely makes me interested.
Well, you're reading the best run of Vixen right there.
Well, that's disappointing. So somebody needs to get that character and play with it. But
for sure.
I've read some Justice League in the past. I think we all have to a point, but this is, for me, in my reading, it's definitely a high watermark.
So this came out, I think, about the same time that Johns was doing Justice Society. Mm-hmm. And both were fantastic at the time. So I once you started describing it, I'm like, oh shit, I did read this. So really, really good Justice League story. Maybe some of my favorite ever, if not my favorite.
So the second arc of this is actually it's got Johns did not write it, but he's co-credited with Meltzer on it, because they bring in the Justice Society. So that would have been right in that window. I never realized until I read this book how much Ed Beans and Brian Hitch have in common stylistically. Like, I'm looking at some of these pages, especially where he draws Solomon Grundy, where him and Brian Hitch share and that would make sense because they're from the same school of comics, right? But they do share, they overlap. Like, there's a Venn diagram where they both sit in together. And I don't think I'd ever realized how much Ed Beans really reminds me of Hitch, of good Hitch, I should say, because there's a difference there. Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Ross did the covers. Is that correct?
I
feel like he did. I know he did on the Justice Society stuff, but I think he did the covers on the Justice League as well. But I may be wrong.
You may be right. So in the format that I have, it doesn't show you the individual covers, but in the back matter of the book, which, by the way, in the collection that I have, the back matter is awesome. They show you some scripted pages that Meltzer wrote, and they've got some of Ed Beans' editorial on them, but they show you some of the covers in the back matter, and it looks like You've got Ed Beans did some covers. Gene Haw did some covers. George Perez did some covers.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess he was just doing the covers for Justice Society at that point. But
J.G. Jones did some covers. That's rad.
yeah.
But those covers aren't the hotness, but yeah, it made me a JLA fan. If you're not familiar, this is one of the better ones that you can pick up. Good times, and
For sure.
it holds up. You know, there's some stuff that was written in 2006 that doesn't. We're far enough removed from that world now that there's some stuff that absolutely does not hold up. This does.
I think this was after 52 and Countdown and all of that, and it was kind of the relaunching of DC at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
That would be something that we would need to ask Bill Zanowitz, because I guarantee you Bill Zanowitz can roll off the top of his head and just tell you exactly when it was. And
I'm pretty sure this followed up 52, Countdown, and what was it, Final Crisis?
So I know it happened after Crisis. It's post-Crisis.
Yeah.
Because they actually mentioned some of that in the book. Which
So I think this was the relaunch of post-Crisis Justice League.
That would make sense. Can I make a shame on me nerd confession?
What's that?
Never read Crisis.
Yeah, you know.
That may alter your view on Meltzer.
Oh, really?
Well, especially if you read Identity Crisis.
Okay. Wasn't his strong point?
That is a matter of opinion.
I love it. So
sounds
like Matt doesn't like it. I do love it.
Well, it's not a quality. It's the quality is not in question. It's the direction that is very debatable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I'll put that on my reading list. But it was fun. It was fun to dip into this. And that's one of the things.
You've not read any of the Crisis stories?
Nope.
Caleb? Oh, wow. Okay.
Nope. And that's, like I said, I was not a DC kid. And I think that
for sure.
I think that absolutely reflects on how some things happen in the DC universe that I don't fully understand. You know, like we talk about things sometimes and we disagree on things as far as the big picture of stuff goes. And I think part of that is colored by the fact that I have not read these giant moments in DC history, that I'm only looking at whatever we're talking about in the microcosm of what's happening in front of me in the book. And I think that may be that may have an influence on how I tend to interpret things.
I'm pretty sure I have the Identity Crisis on my shelf in here. I'll dig it out and get it to you.
I would appreciate that. I do need to read it. It's on my homework list. That might be something we need to do for a chaos episode sometime, is give ourselves like a things that we haven't read that we want to read homework list.
Yeah.
That we're not going to follow through on because we don't have time. Well,
I'll just go in there and pull any of the number of omnibuses off of my shelf and say, these are the ones I still need to get to.
Like it's an easy task for us because we all have stacks of stuff we haven't read yet. So speaking of stuff we haven't read yet, we haven't read these things because they haven't come out yet. Every Wednesday, well, actually Tuesday and Wednesday now that DC has flipped the script on us a little bit, new comic books hit the shelves, or they hit the databases, or they hit the wherever you get your comics from because you're a good person and you get your comics the right way and you pay for them because you're not a bad person. Because if you're bad, the JLA will come find you like they did Solomon Grundy, and they'll beat you to death. So that's what the rumor has. I don't know about you guys, but on Wednesdays, I like to go over to my buddy, my buddy Matt's shop. Not this Matt, but a different Matt, over in Sherwood. It's called Kapow Comics.
Well, you clarified that by saying your buddy Matt.
Oh, sadness, sad day.
I'm totally playing.
Buddies Matt. they're the buddies Matt. But no, so if you're in Central Arkansas and you want a good comic shop, you can do no better in Central Arkansas than go over to see Kapow Comics. Go see Tony. Go see Matt. Get your books. They'll treat you right. Tell them we sent you. You won't get a discount, but they'll at least, they'll talk shit about us because that's what they do. Because we love each other and we have that kind of relationship. But yeah, head over there. So who wants to go first? Who wants to tell folks what they're picking up next week?
I'll go first. What trope or I don't know if trope's the right word, but what do I hate most in comic books? What do I buy and never read?
Ooh.
What do you buy and never read?
Annuals.
Oh,
Yep.
gosh. Why did that not occur to me?
That should have been the first thought in my head, and it wasn't.
That's a fail.
My book that is coming out is Star Wars Adventures Annual 2020.
Here we go. Yeah, because it's Star Wars.
No. This is on my read list, not just my pull list, because it has Jackson in it. And Jackson, I don't know if you guys know this, was the rabbit-looking alien that was in the original Star Wars comics that has not been in canon. So this is,
of course, we know that. Caleb, can you believe Craig questioned? Can you believe that? I cannot believe, man.
I know that so much that I even know that he's not just a rabbit; he's a green rabbit.
Yeah, that is correct.
See, that's in our knowledge.
Jackson into Star Wars canon. So that is why you should pick up Star Wars Adventures Annual 2020.
Matt, what have we done to make Craig doubt us like this?
Don't project that onto you and I. That's his own failings.
You guys could not remember that I did not like annuals, so that's why.
I had moved on. I had so moved on from that after because I've read so many great annuals, and I'm not reading no damn annual because of the staples or whatever your objection is to annuals. I've moved past that nonsense. Yeah. And now you got to bring that bubbling back up to the surface. So
hey, I'm gonna read one.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll break the string here and we'll start picking up other annuals. At least the annuals that we recommend.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like
I wish I'd read the Joker's 80th anniversary at this point.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's the last Batman annual was very, very strong. And you were like, not going to do it. Not going to do it. Yeah.
On that note, and staying in the same publisher, the last Wonder Woman annual, it was really strong. And playing off of what we know about Craig's disgruntlement about annuals, it actually did tie in to the story. It was it was the end cap to Steve Orlando's run on Wonder Woman.
Nice.
So if you felt like the jolt when Mariko Tamaki took over, go check out the annual on that. He's not going to do it. He's not.
No, I'm probably not going to.
What are you checking out next week, Matt?
Reaver number 11, the book I've spoken about many times already. This is the Justin Jordan, Nico Henriken, and Becky Cloonan's doing the covers. Part 5 of this arc, the truth has been revealed, but there may be one enemy his son Breaker can't kill, his own past. So this story continues to deliver strong, and I'm going to continue to talk about it whenever it comes up. There's, next week's going to be kind of a light week, it looks like, for me. I didn't see any new series that were starting for me to mention.
Same.
So I fall back on this one to just keep the attention on it when it's appropriate.
Same.
It's always appropriate because it's amazing.
Yeah.
So much like Matt, mine is not a new story. It's actually an end cap. It is the finale. It's a final issue of a story. And that story is none other than Ash and Thorn from our good friends over at Ahoy Comics. It's written by Mariah McCourt. It's got some art by So Lee. And it's been a really fun series so far. I love what Ahoy's doing. I think that publisher is doing some really cool, really, really great stuff. And I tell you to read this because, like I said, it's the end of what they call season 1 of Ash and Thorn, and you should go pick it up, but you should also pick up 1 through 4 so you know what the hell's happening. And that will boost its numbers, and it will make us all happy. But if you've been reading the story, you know that Lottie, who is this kind of she is the chosen champion against the dark forces. But here's the thing. Lottie is about 86. She is an elderly woman. she's this old grandma kind of figure, but she's a badass. And so the solicit says when the going gets tough, the tough get baking, and it's got a picture of her like stuffing a demon into the oven. So it's been a lot of fun. If you haven't, what little I can tell you without spoiling anything, if you enjoy action adventure, if you enjoy different takes on people who might not be the hero you thought they were going to be, this one is for you. And so, yeah, Soli is beautiful on the pages. So go check out Ash and Thorn #5 and grab the 1 through 4. I may have broken our rules there, but it's okay. We'll be.
That's
fine.
okay.
So, well, guys, we got anything else we need to tell the fine folks at home to go do? You got any other suggestions? Anything that they need to know?
You know, there's something I think that our audience really does need to know. Craig, why don't you tell our audience how you feel about the band Nickelback?
I'm completely at a loss as to what you're talking about.
Oh, how convenient. You don't recall our conversation about Nickelback last night? Because I will never forget our conversation about Nickelback last night.
What, that my wife loves Nickelback?
There's part of it.
And that I didn't mind their older stuff?
Did you hear that, Caleb? Did you hear that?
You guys are breaking up a little bit. I'm sorry.
Lucky you. This is a breakthrough confession. This is a window into part of Craig that I did not know. Craig is a Nickelback apologist. Did you know this?
You know, I like it when my friends like things. I like it when there are things that make my friends
even
happy.
when it's obviously bad for them and against their best interests.
I like when my friends like things. I like when my friends are happy. Hey,
I think that's really selfish of you guys.
I love things that you guys think are shit, so I can't say too much. I mean,
The thing about art is it's all subjective.
Nickelback, you can't call Nickelback art, you son of a bitch. That is, you can't just throw that word around. It's irresponsible, and you can't put that out there into the ether.
I got nothing.
Okay. Do what?
So confession, I actually owned their first album. I gave them a chance. So,
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I gave them a chance as well. I mean, you have to have an informed opinion about these. That's not what we're talking about here.
I don't even think you've listened to 2 of their songs.
Oh, I have. You couldn't help but do it because they were all over the radio for what seemed like just an extremely long part of my life. And so
you would think that I had said I like Creed.
Exactly. There's just very little difference. That's the thing. Is there's so little a difference.
Oh, we've gone to we've taken a wrong turn.
Yes, we have.
This is not what I imagined when I asked my little question. I'm at a loss. And frankly, I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's fair.
We've got a little, so let's end on a high note because we have a little bit of extra time. We don't just read comics. We also watch a fair amount of TV. So everybody tell the folks at home one thing they should go watch right now.
Oh, I think Matt and I are probably in agreement. They should be watching Raised by Wolves on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't watch a whole lot of TV. In fact, most television shows I don't really get into. This one is 3 episodes have been released. I've seen the first 2. This one's impressive. This one is so far it's very impressive. So I'm certainly on board for this.
Well, I have not seen that, but it's very much on my list because you 2 assholes keep talking it up. But if you get the chance and you want another show that you might enjoy, you should go on Netflix and check out Cobra Kai. If you haven't watched Cobra Kai yet, it's solid. It's fun. If you were a fan of The Karate Kid, it's basically a natural sequel to The Karate Kid, but in current times. So
yeah, that show got a hell of a lot of buzz. Of course, it started out on YouTube, and it was so successful that Netflix bought it. So it's got a hell of a lot of buzz. And who doesn't like The Karate Kid? I mean, are there people out there?
There probably are.
I would. I don't know. I don't know that anybody who was alive when it came out I've never heard anybody say anything bad about it. But
I mean, I could skip ever seeing the remake of it again.
Well, that doesn't count. But
yeah,
we don't count that. But I imagine that, like, younger generation. Actually, I bet people are going to watch this now who have never seen The Karate Kid and go back and check it out. So
I actually loved the first 2 2 Karate Kids.
Wax on,
The
wax
one where they go to Okinawa as well.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
No mercy.
This actually, you know what? I can imagine baby Matt going to Cobra Kai.
I was like, oh man, that's right. No mercy.
Matt would absolutely be in Cobra Kai. Well, all right.
Yes, he would.
Yeah, the black geese. Those are awesome. Metal.
They did look really cool. I would not want to wear them in the South because they would be hot. But that's neither here nor there. What is here nor there is that you fine folks have stayed with us this whole time. You've listened to the episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. We have. It's fun. We like to keep it lighthearted. We like to talk about things we love. And if you like to talk about things you love, come check out our Facebook group. We're always there. Hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up on Twitter. Send us an email. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. Tap into us. And if you think that other folks might enjoy this, maybe you know somebody who loves comics, they like things that they want to hear folks talk about in a way that is positive, in a way that doesn't just diminish things or drag them through the mud, share it with them. Word of mouth is great. We really appreciate it. If you're the kind of person who leaves reviews, you can head over to iTunes where you can find our podcast and you can leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Hopefully, I would prefer it be a good one. If not, that's okay. We appreciate your honesty. But if you don't like it, then you're probably not going to listen to us and you probably won't hear this. So it doesn't matter. But inevitably, you're going to go through this week. You're going to pick up some books. Hopefully, you're going to watch some cool TV, and you are going to go forth and love some comics. Woo! Dun, 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 dun.